The Chicago Fire return to the MLS playoffs. A brand new Open Cup winner will be crowned tonight. And we talk labor negotiations and CBAs with the head of the USLPA. That and more on an exciting episode here on Wednesday of Morning Kickaround. Welcome on in. You found your way to the show, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on the YouTubes. This is Morning Kickaround. Great episode, a meaty episode on the way. We cover the world's game being played right here in the United States of America. I'm local soccer guy Robert Kerr. To my side, radio soccer guy Jason Davis. How you feeling?
I'm ready. I'm good. It is an eventful Wednesday here on Morning Kickaround. Going to dive into something that we broached briefly on Monday with the USL PA and contract negotiations with the USL, which seems pertinent as the USL gets ready to make some big moves, Mr. Kerr.
Yeah, having to step up what others haven't. Not a lot of talk of the labor negotiations. Trying to fill in the void here on Morning Kickaround as we get rolling. Be sure to tell your friends about the show. Become a subscriber. Doesn't cost you a thing. Click the button. Or if you want to step it up a notch, do the Morning Kickaround channel membership. MK Ultras get priority commenting on these live broadcasts, and they get early access to videos. They get bonus content and access to the Discord server, which is chock full of lots of great conversations and people digging up some great stories and providing some of this fine programming.
Well, let me also tell you, and it says it there at the bottom of the screen on the scroll, that you get bonus stuff. We're doing bonus stuff and behind the scenes. The Ultras already know what we're working on, what we're cooking up, Rob. We've showed them what we're trying to make happen. And obviously, behind the scenes, you don't announce something until it's kind of done, right? You don't want to risk it falling apart. You don't want to promise something that you can't deliver on. But I think if you pay to be an Ultra, if you're an MK Ultra, you should have the right to kind of know what we're cooking up. And there are some interesting things potentially coming down the pipeline for us. So I'm excited to share that stuff. So become an Ultra so you can know what's coming.
If you're a social media at MKickaround on all of our social media platforms, it's been a little quiet because we've been cooking up some good meaty stuff for the main show. But if you want to follow along, at MKickaround is the way to go. You ready for the show? Should we do the show?
Yes, let's go. Let's dive in.
All right, let's kick Wednesday's long balls here on Morning Kickaround. Long ball number one here on Morning Kickaround, starting the show. I'm Robert. He's Jason. History was made on a Tuesday night. That's right. The Chicago Fire dusted off their playoff appearance look last night by winning on the road in Miami, 5-3, ending their drought of postseason appearances since 2017 when Bastian Schweinsteiger was on the team. A team that hasn't won a playoff game since 2009. So, like you said in the comments, Jeffrey, keep it quiet so we don't make the hangover worse for Fire fans. But I bet they would appreciate some celebration for a triumph, not only against a leading team in the league, but also making the playoffs, for cripe's sakes.
Yeah, big deal for Chicago. Greg Berhalter delivering something, to imagine them going from what they were, which was an irrelevant MLS team, to an MLS Cup contender in one season was probably too much. But making the playoffs in a league where 9 teams make it. And by the way, on the screen, you can see a photo of the last Chicago Fire team to make the MLS Cup playoffs. Bastian Schweinsteiger was in that team. That's how long ago that was. It is a big deal. Congratulations to the Fire. I will say that watching that game last night, as much as it was about the Fire sticking it to Inter Miami and booking their place in the playoffs, Inter Miami is not a serious soccer team, Rob. They're not a serious soccer team. I would highly encourage you and everybody listening to go and find John Mueller on Blue Sky, because John has been chronicling just how unserious Inter Miami are with some of their defending. And again, it was on full display last night in Fort Lauderdale, but the Inter Miami lack of defensive cohesion was the Fire's gain. They had a couple bangers, including Brian Gutierrez, who probably doesn't get enough attention, to be honest with you. I mean, you compare his numbers to like a Diego Luna or a Jack McGlynn, and he's right there with some young number 10s in Major League Soccer. I've been high on Gutierrez for a while. He's been a youth international. He might still have a level yet that he can hit, and he's helped the Fire to the playoffs.
Has consistency probably been his thing? Like really stand out in some games and kind of being quiet in others. If you haven't seen that goal from last night, what a way to, stamp your playoff passport. If you go back and see those highlights, the 5th goal that the Fire scored last night, rocket shot, top corner, really something to behold. But yeah, Gutierrez, why isn't he in the conversation?
Well, I think we do this thing, right, where if you are not already playing higher level soccer, and for us that's Europe, right? If you're not in a top 5 league in Europe and getting minutes by the age of 22, which is what Brian Gutierrez is, we kind of write you off as a potential impact player for the national team, which means you then get relegated to just like, oh, he's just a nice MLS player. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Like we need good MLS players who maybe aren't the level for the national team. But as I said, there's some argument that Brian Gutierrez is up there with some of the guys that get more attention. I mean, how much did the Colorado Rapids just spend on bringing Paxton Aronson back from Europe? I mean, and that's the kind of
Some
player
would
they
say
want
too
to build
much.
around. And you could argue that a guy like Gutierrez is as valuable as Paxton Aronson. I mean, to his team. Certainly he's helped the Fire. He's a homegrown player. I think that's something that we should, be happy about. I don't know. Just I'm not trying to build up Gutierrez into a world beater or to a guy that should be playing in a top 5 league in Europe necessarily. But again, it's good that we have these American creative attacking players like a 22-year-old Brian Gutierrez who can help his team to the playoffs.
Think about all the history that has happened since 2017. The last time, and yeah, like I said, no wins since 2009. That won and out in 17 and won and out in 2012. The amount of history and how many rotations around the sun that we've all done since the Chicago Fire have made it into like the top 8 or 9 in half of the league. It's wild.
The last time that the Chicago Fire won a playoff match, your friend Jason was about, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months into making podcasts. I hadn't even completed a year of making a podcast yet. And it was a terrible podcast in the beginning. So those were rough goes for me. So the last time the Fire won a playoff game, I was just starting the career that I now have. And I was definitely not anywhere close to being professional. So that's wild to think about.
That picture you put on screen of Schweinsteigers and the others, I was a Chicago Soccer Examiner in my soccer blogging days and did one of my first pro player features on the man on the left, Nemanja Nikolic.
There he is. Yeah.
Was amongst, I think he tied or broke the scoring record, and I think it was subsequently beaten by Joseph Martinez a year or two after. But the man on the far left that some outside of Chicago may not recognize was the goal scoring breaker that season. And then David Akam there was an exciting player, and
yeah,
that team was able to raise some average players up a notch. Jeff Lorenowitz was on that team.
Oh, was he really? Wow.
He went to Atlanta, but that was an exciting team to cover. Kind of wild. But going back to your point of Miami being serious, what do they need? Do you think that the moving on of Busquets and maybe some rearranging of a defensive midfield would, amp up their serious meter?
I mean, that's next season, Rob. I mean, they're not
getting ahead of ourselves.
They're not doing that this year. They're going to ride with the guys that they got now, and that includes Sergio Busquets, who certainly did not seem to be of the level last night in Fort Lauderdale. I'm looking at that 2017 Chicago Fire team that you said you cover again. Bastian Schweinsteiger, obviously the biggest name on there. David Akam, Luis Solignac was on that team. Wow. Georgi Mihalovic was a very young player on that team. He was a homegrown kid with the Fire before everything fell apart and he went to Montreal. Arturo Alvarez, that's for the older MLS fans out there. Arturo Alvarez had a lovely left foot. And Dax McCarty was on that team. I don't see Lorenowitz. I do see McCarty.
He might have moved on in 16, perhaps, but he
Maybe
was
that's right.
part of that mid 2010 team that I did cover. But yeah, Dax McCarty, and then there's also Juninho, former MLS Cup winner with the LA Galaxy.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, I remember
So
that.
they that was an exciting team. Can Chicago Fire do better and actually win a game?
Well, okay, so let's kind of just before we move on here, they finished third in the conference back in 2017. Right, they didn't win any playoff games, but they finished third overall and in the conference. This team is not going to finish third overall or third in the conference, right? This is a very different level in terms of just sneaking into the playoffs. And as much as I'm glad that the Chicago Fire matter a little bit and have made the postseason, and they could end up hosting the play-in game or even climbing into the places proper where they don't have to play that play-in game because they have 2 games left. They're a point back of Orlando City. Orlando City's got a game in hand. Columbus is obviously lurking there. We know who's in the field. It's just a matter of seeding. As much as I want to say great for Chicago, and I'm certainly one of those people who have said every single time they miss the playoffs, it is a travesty that is not a better MLS town, right? That is a massive city. They have a big soccer population. There's no reason the Fire shouldn't matter more. And I guess give Joe Mansueto credit for trying and trying and trying again and finally getting something half right. But 9 teams is too many to make the playoffs, right? We are more than half of the conference makes the playoffs. That is not good. 60%. That does not mean you are a good team. It means you are barely above mediocre, if that. So I don't know that I want to shower praise upon the Fire, but it is notable that they have done this, and it is a stepping stone. And of course, they're building a brand new fancy stadium there at the 78 in Chicago. So if they can build that momentum, like this is the kind of thing that captures a little bit more attention, just a little bit in Chicago, and allows them to build towards 2028 when they open that building.
Yeah, going from the dregs to mediocre is a good step forward in the Greg Berhalter's first year. Currently on 15 wins, 11 losses, 6 draws. So just above average, enough to get them into those playoff spots. And I'm curious to hear from Fire fans if they thought that this success would come with the hiring of Greg Berhalter. Moving on, long ball number 2. We talked about leaked badge at the end of last week, a new team on the west side of Michigan. So West Michigan Soccer confirmed as AC Grand Rapids entering MLS Next Pro. And one of the things that got my eyebrow raised is we kind of maybe had less than effusive language when describing the badge at our first glance, and really surprised on the official announcement that this is a Matt Wolff design.
Yeah, look, I mean, Matt Wolff has done some incredible stuff in American soccer. I'm not going to shade the guy because I'm not a huge fan of this AC Grand Rapids badge. I imagine that Mr. Wolff was taking direction from his client. He just, I don't think he probably had complete creative freedom. They probably had a vibe or a look in their heads. I do think that Chris
made up FIFA team
is right that, well, there's that, but also maybe Hogwarts. It does feel a little bit Hogwartsian. It feels a little Harry Potter. And the other part, there's nothing wrong with this. Like, I don't want to tear it down. There are worse badges out there. There are worse names out there. As much as I am kind of skewering the idea that you're an AC. Are you an association soccer club? Are you a athletic club of some type? Or do you have a weight room that I can sign up for? I mean, that part of it is odd to me because I do think too many people in American soccer are chasing this thing of like some sort of European legitimacy off of a name. I mean, the most ridiculous example of this, and I was thinking about it the other day, of course, is Real Salt Lake. You're not a Royal Soccer Club, Real Salt Lake. You're in Utah. Like Real means royal. That's why Real Madrid is Real Madrid. It's because they were given that title by the King of Spain. You can't possibly be royal. But so on the egregious level scale, AC Grand Rapids is nowhere near that. It's just, it's fine. It's fine, Rob. And now that it's confirmed, I will say again, it's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. We can pull it down though. We don't need to stare too much at that, but kind of brings up the question that there's reporting. in the morning kick around Discord server, they referenced an article from Backhill and Joseph Lowry talking to the president of MLS Next Pro, saying that they're going for 40 to 50 teams in
Yeah.
MLS Next Pro, currently sitting at 29, 27 of the 29 being reserve teams for MLS clubs, 2
Right.
independents. They've got about half a dozen or so independent clubs in the pipeline, including AC Grand Rapids. So curious to get some feedback from fans. If your city was dabbling in this, which direction would they go?
First of all, a little bit of the catching up on the news. So this is Charles Altchek, who is now the head of MLS Next Pro. He's been elevated to that role. There's some speculation that he could be a contender to follow Don Garber into the commissioner role of Major League Soccer. Now,
he's Don Next Pro.
What? No, I'm sorry. Was that a joke? I missed it. I'm sorry. I was reading this stuff. So you mentioned the piece at Backheel. Support Backheel, by the way. Support Joe Lowry. 40 teams, 40 to 50 teams. They would obviously have to go outside of the reserves team model. And right now, how many independent teams are there in MLS Next Pro, not counting AC Grand Rapids? Two. We got Carolina Core and Chattanooga, right? There was at one point going to be Rochester was going to be an MLS Next Pro team, and then that all collapsed.
Yeah, Vardy ran away.
Jamie Vardy situation, which he didn't actually pay any money into the. Remember how we talked about ownership schemes and big names attached to these? Sometimes there's not actually money changing hands. It's not really an investment, so to speak. I don't know that I'm firm on this, where I'm like, this stinks. I don't like MLS Next Pro. Get it out of here. There are probably places where it makes sense. I don't know if it makes more sense for Grand Rapids to be an MLS Next Pro team than a USL team. There are different criteria. There's different money involved. You know, if you just want to get a team off the ground, I imagine that the structure that MLS provides, and probably the buy-in being what it is attractive. If you want independence, complete and total independence, well, then there's only one way to go, and that's USL. I'm leaving NISA out of this. Well, maybe one day we'll be talking about them again. They're not really a factor. I don't know that this does feel like, again, the soccer wars are heating up. It's not just about like Chattanooga Red Wolves versus Chattanooga FC. It's not just that. It's kind of this general sense that there's going to be marketplaces. There are going to be towns. There's going to be cities where MLS Next Pro is going to want to be, where they may even have interest from local ownership. And is that okay? Is that better? Or does that cause a problem if there are two teams, a la Chattanooga, right? Which I don't think has gone all that great for either one of those teams. I think it could be better, right? Now, I can't say that it's like, again, we've talked about territorial rights. USL has their own. U.S. Soccer is not in a position, legally speaking, to say you can't go into that market with your team because there's already a USL team or there's already a team for a different league. They can't really do that without getting sued. That's not how this works. But there is a sense that this isn't great for American soccer. So there are no barriers to this. And I guess, again, what is the strategy here from MLS in terms of what Next Pro is going to be? Is it just a developmental vehicle, or is it supposed to be its own entity? In which case, again, having all the reserve teams and the twos and the Bs doesn't seem to fit that idea.
I've seen some speculation that the Next Pro is just kind of a placeholder for maybe a future MLS second division, and the reserve teams kind of get put to the side, and they're trying to fill up a whole like minor league system and almost become like the more of a baseball or a hockey sort of a thing where
right, which
and
again,
that sort of a thing.
You and I are in a position where we say we don't love that. I think most of the ultras and our listeners, our viewers, don't like that idea of kind of being subservient, being a developmental vehicle, being a farm team, which we've already talked about on this show. Most people don't like that, but I can see it as there might be a lot of people who don't care, who just don't care. And again, different kinds of supporters, the hardcore, the diehards, I'm really into this, I want my team to be independent, I want it to be its own thing, are going to probably reject the idea of MLS Next Pro in most cases. But there will probably be people, especially families, kids who don't know the difference and don't care, who are going to just go out to the MLS Next Pro game. And by the way, in the chat right now, very good conversation about how MLS Next Pro, not only is it a lower barrier in terms of maybe expansion fee, Rob, but it's also that travel and the other costs that come along with running a professional soccer operation are smaller because there's more teams to play. They have dotted the map more than a USL League One, which is essentially the same level.
Yeah, that's definitely worth considering. And again, we shall see how this all plays out. We are at the forefront of the proxy war, the war of the soccer war here in the United States, moving down to the lower divisions, it would seem. Long ball number 3 here today on Wednesday. A new winner of the U.S. Open Cup will be crowned this evening. Austin and Nashville to clash this evening in the 2025 iteration of the U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah, it's a big deal. We should celebrate this. I will say, I wish it was happening on a Saturday, Rob. I wish this was happening on a weekend. I wish we were doing the showpiece thing that the English do with their FA Cup final. That would be better. I don't know that we need a neutral venue. I'm fine with this being in the home venue of one of the teams because of the way this works, travel and those kind of things in America. But it would be nice if this was given, its own platform, its own stage on a Saturday afternoon. Now, I wanted to share this. I saw this on socials. This is, I guess, Austin commissioned Joel Corral to write or to do a poster. My kid is very into art, so this is the kind of thing that I think he would create. So I like the vibes of this. Obviously, one of the connections between Austin and Nashville is the music culture that they share. There's a little bit of I'm not a huge country music guy, Rob. I don't know if you are, but
No.
I do know that Nashville is the commercial home of country music. It's always been the home of country music, Grand Ole Opry, and all that stuff. And Austin is more like the home of outlaw country vibes. Willie Nelson and some of those other artists more based out of Austin. So I thought that was cool. I mean, as you said, a first time champion. That's always fun. This has been a good tournament. I don't know that it's my favorite iteration of the Open Cup, but it has been interesting.
That first couple rounds when the pro teams drop down is always kind of like the highlight for the most part. For me, I would say the highlight of this iteration was seeing the first clash between the Chattanooga sides. Chattanooga versus Chattanooga Red Wolves was a spicy affair. They went hammer and tongue. The whole stadium packed to the rafters. Commenters were saying at the time that was one of the biggest gatherings they could recall of the community in Chattanooga. And there was even like a pitch invasion at the end when the Red Wolves won. I think didn't someone try to plant the flag in an artificial surface
we
turf?
talked about that. Yeah, we talked about the we had pictures. My apologies. We had pictures for of the flag planting, and I think we even interviewed or maybe talked to somebody around all that at the time. That's probably the highlight of the tournament. You're right. And it was that derby match between the two Chattanooga sides who otherwise won't play each other because they play in different leagues. I'm trying to remember. I mean, look, we love upsets. We love Cinderella stories. This one gave us a couple of moments, but didn't quite have the vibes of, say, Sacramento making a final or anything like that, or an amateur side taking down a professional side. I don't think we got one of those this year.
No, I don't think we did. To get here, Nashville beat Philadelphia 3-1 in the semifinal. Previous to that, in the quarters, beat DC, Orlando, and the Chattanooga Red Wolves to start. And then on the other side, Austin beat Minnesota in the semi, San Jose in the quarters, Houston earlier than that, and then El Paso. So there was a MLS versus a USL side, Austin taking out El Paso in a previous round. But, you were saying that you wish that it was on a platform, maybe its own window on a weekend game, kind of give it a bit of a platform, some prestige. But It is on a legitimate network. It is not just a YouTube stream. It is on Paramount Plus tonight.
Yeah, and U.S. Soccer is using this as a platform for some of the stuff that they've got going on. I mean, whatever your feelings about U.S. Soccer right now, JT Batson and some other figures from U.S. Soccer will be on the coverage. The press release that they put out says that they're gonna have the match night pregame show starting at 7. They got the game at 8, and they're actually gonna have a post game show as well. The match night crew will welcome a parade of guests to their pitchside desk, including JT Batson, Mauricio Pochettino will be on hand, BJ Callahan, of course, and from Nashville, and then Brandon Vasquez, who has been a U.S. international on the other side. So this is going to feel relatively big, and I'm imagining that Austin is going to fill up the building as they go for their first trophy.
I got to push back on one of our regular commenters, Andy. This is cynicism to a high degree here. I would call Paramount a legitimate network. You heard that rundown of the personalities and the production that they're putting into this.
He's saying that Paramount Plus is a streaming service, right? In a world where streaming services rule, I think you kind of have to treat streaming services as legitimate. I mean, Netflix is picking up live sports now. And then, Paramount, CBS Sports Network is a cable channel. Not everybody gets it, but it is out there, and some people will have it on their streaming services. And I imagine that it doesn't say Golazo for this, Rob, which is the free streaming channel where they do morning footy and things like that. So that's a little disappointing if that's not part of the deal. Again, U.S. Soccer has this press release out saying that, this is who's going to be on the show. It does say Paramount Plus and CBS Sports Network. It does not say that Golazo will be okay. Yeah. Well, in addition to full match and highlight CBS Sports coverage, includes studio programming on CBS Sports Golazo Network and the creation of ancillary content beyond games, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. There's going to be some of that stuff, but I guess it won't be on Golazo. The game itself won't be on Golazo.
Oh boy. All right. Well, it is the MLS Cup final tonight. Austin versus Nashville. You got any feelings of who might come out on top as we round this subject up?
I mean, you would maybe shade it to the home team a little bit just because of the energy. I think Nashville is a better team than Austin. I think Austin is pretty mediocre over there in the Western Conference. But if you're playing for a trophy, you kind of got to throw all that stuff out at this point. Nashville in the Eastern Conference on 53 points. Austin in the Western Conference on 44. They're both in the same position. It tells you the difference between the East and the West. They're both in sixth place at the moment. So they're going to both be playoff teams. I just think you would say with the firepower of Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge, you would, again, probably give the edge to Nashville over Austin on that side of the ball. But we shall see. Brad Stuver has been a hero before. So it could be one of those nights for him as well.
We have a great guest waiting in the wings before we get to our hot topic of the day. If you're watching this now, haven't hit subscribe, do so now. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. Helps the channel incredibly. Tell a friend if you already have. Those help as well. Become an MK Ultra, a channel member. You just hit the button at the bottom to become a member, and $3.99 a month. You get priority commenting on live streams. You get bonus content, early access to videos, and access to the Morning Kickaround Discord server, a place for great conversation and suggestions for the show. We got threads on local soccer, MLS, pro rel conversations, USL, national teams, and much, much more. So become a MK Ultra or tell your friends, family, and acquaintances to do the same. All right, hang with us. We are going to welcome in the head of the USLPA. We're going to take a breath and come right back with our hot topic here on Morning Kickaround. Welcome in. This is a Morning Kickaround, and this segment is Hot Topic. And the hot topic of the day is the player negotiations, the labor negotiations between the USLPA and the USL. The USL, the second and third division, currently in American soccer. Big plans on the way to expand to a D1 league and add pro rel. But the first ever CBA with the players is set to expire shortly. And to talk about the state of the negotiations, we have the head of the USLPA, Connor Tobin. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us here on Morning Kickaround.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time, Connor. Appreciate you responding to our entreaty to come on. I mean, in the middle of a negotiation is always an interesting time to talk about said negotiation. So without getting too in the weeds in the beginning, just give us a thumbnail sketch of where things stand, because on Monday we had we responded to the news that the USLPA was asking fans to block USL on social media.
Yeah. Maybe just take a step back here. I think structurally might help color some of this. The USLPA is actually an umbrella organization. So we actually have 3 distinct groups of players, meaning that we would have different collective bargaining agreements for those groups of players. So have one for USL Championship, one for USL League One, and then we have representation rights for USL Super League. We do not yet have a CBA for that group. So the post that you saw, we've been engaged in trying to get to a successor agreement in USL Championship. Our current agreement expires December 31st of this year. We actually entered back into renegotiations August 29th of 2024 on that agreement. Some of it is unique to USL in terms of the business structure. There's a lot of moving parts at the table. It takes time. But we're 26 bargaining sessions in, and we do not feel from a player end that progress on core issues has been very substantial, which is we're starting to come up against the shot clock, which is now why you're seeing us be a little bit more vocal.
26 is a lot of conversations to have with, unsatisfactory progress. So what are the big stumbling blocks to finding an agreement at this point?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's a lot with USL, coming out this spring with some of their big ambitious pieces, whether that's Division One or Pro Rel. What's the impact on championship? So there's been a lot to kind of try to flush out there. But I think from a championship player end, we're still chasing the basics that we feel every pro deserves: employer provided healthcare, fair pay, professional conditions. So that encompasses quite a bit, but that's what we've been focused on from our end. And that's where I think, when we look at the 550 players approximately in USL Championship, that's where we want to see the needle move.
So there was a little bit of a question, after we covered the vocal steps you have taken as the USLPA, a little bit of question around the healthcare thing in particular. So I want to clarify that, because, people say here there's no healthcare. They presume, a player can rupture an ACL on the field and then not be supported by his team. Is that the case? What is a player situation? Hurt on the field, general health care, because obviously things happen off the field as well, and that's a major factor here.
Yeah, so a couple different pieces to this. Right now, there's no mandate for employer-provided healthcare in either Championship or League One. So some players may get coverage through their clubs, but many are left paying out of pocket or going without health insurance. As we get into kind of what situation might we be dealing with, it kind of will vary. So let's say a player gets hurt as part of their employment. So on the field, technically speaking, clubs need to carry workers' comp insurance or equivalent benefits. However, we run into numerous amount of issues because our direct employers are the individual clubs, meaning that the implications of where your club is based has massive implications in terms of the comp coverage. That doesn't even get into it's elective from the club on who their work comp provider is.
Okay.
We encounter tons of issues. So standard of care, speed of care, these are issues that we're constantly dealing with from a players association standpoint. So some clubs have great providers, pretty seamless care. We have other ones where, we're 8-9 months post-injury trying to chase someone to open a work comp claim to go get coverage in terms of this. And then the second piece that we're very much focused on in these negotiations is obviously player care, health. It's an all-encompassing piece. So what happens when a player is sick or there's an injury or incident that lives outside of their employment? What is the coverage there? What does that look like? And that's where, from our end, it's substandard not to have employer-provided healthcare. If the league wants players to treat this as a career, baseline standards like healthcare can't be optional. And that's, I think, a big point from a player point of view.
Well, that's an interesting situation to be in. So you said that everything's kind of compartmentalized between the leagues and how you are, an umbrella for the three subsects. Is it too hard to speculate what would happen to your organization if ProRel was implemented?
I mean, these are questions that have been front and center in bargaining from our perspective. Hey, great that the league has come out. There are exciting ideas around Division One and ProRel. But from our perspective, no matter the structure, the sport can't succeed without fair pay, safe conditions, and some of these baseline standards. Ambition is great, but ambition without credible professional standards, it's hollow. And so I think a lot of what this negotiation is, how do we kind of reconcile the ambition that's being talked about with what the day-to-day experience is? And we think that needs to kind of work in tandem.
Connor, we were surprised when we heard about, obviously what happened on social media, and we go look, and I've been talking about American soccer for 20 years. We've talked about the USL and the growth of this league and all these things. And, and we know there's some coverage out there, friends of ours who cover this league, but it feels like there was just sort of a dearth of information or coverage of this. I know when the MLS Players Association goes into a CBA conversation with MLS, it's a huge deal, at least in that world. Do you feel like this has been missed? I mean, do you think fans do you think fans care about this stuff and maybe just aren't informed? Where do you think that is right now?
I think there's probably a range of answers that all contribute to that, Jason. I think some of it is coverage of it. It's been limited for sure. I think some fans may feel like, hey, I want to show up on a Saturday night and just enjoy games, and I don't really want to get into this side of it. I also think, USL and where it sits in all of this, it's a unique structure. I don't think that gets talked about enough. I know there's been a lot of coverage at an MLS level of single entity and implications and how does it relate to FIFA rules and things like that. I don't think the same sort of coverage has been given to USL and its franchise model.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that a lot of people have wrestled with what are all the implications that flow out of that. And I think, that's all contributed to a space where this is kind of flown under the radar. From my perspective, I think this is one of the most important conversations that's happened in U.S. soccer. And I know that's biased, but from my perspective, what we're dealing with is, at some level, what is the threshold of what is professional soccer in this country? What are those standards?
Right.
And if we're pushing that, standard of, between semi-pro and pro, and we're pushing that standard higher, we're going to elevate the professional game across the board. We're going to elevate our national team. We're going to do all of those things, but this doesn't receive the same sort of coverage, which to me is kind of, if we're in this conversation of how do we grow the sport in this country, this deserves more attention.
I don't think you're underselling it by saying how important this piece of the conversation is to the future of American soccer, because part of what USL is trying to do and what we all want for American soccer is for more domestic players to be entering in and make that pathway to become a professional soccer player more clear and smoother. And then having, base salary being taken care of and having insurance definitely plays a part in someone's decision whether to become a professional soccer player. And you yourself had a storied career, a lot of the time spent in USL, and then you were on the forefront of creating the Players Association and getting that first CBA over the line. So can you say what your professional life was like before that CBA, how it's improved over this first one, and what needs to be added?
Yeah, I would say certainly some of my experience as a player played into this. I would say that's not just indicative of me, but the group of founding players that deserve a lot of credit driving this. I think one of the defining features for U.S. soccer of anything below MLS, even arguably MLS for a big portion of it, has been instability. Mm-hmm. Literally, as I played, we had NASL, you had USL Pro. It's gone through its iterations. I mean, 2010, you had USSF D2 League, where the federation actually stepped in to run it.
Yeah.
So that instability is not just at a club level where we've had clubs coming and going, but leagues literally coming and going. And that's certainly affected the player experience. I remember having conversations as an early pro with guys who played through the middle 2000s. And they were saying some of the same things that we were arguing hey, when we formed. So this was not something new. We just reached a critical piece where we had a group of players decide to take this on and say, you know what, we're tired of waiting around, waiting for things to stabilize and eventually the player conditions to improve. We're going to take the bull by the horns. I think one of the things for me, and I was a marginal player. I look at a lot of guys that I played with that were much better players than myself. I maybe had a longer career because I was at peace with, hey, I really love this and I want to pursue it. And I was watching teammates, competitors leave the game because they were navigating a career with too much uncertainty, was not viable. So they're going into other things. So if we have talent leaving the game, we're not pushing that professional standard. That's part of the reason that we think this matters so much.
Yeah.
The final piece I'll say on that, I think if US Soccer or USL is serious about Division I and Pro Rel, the first step here is not structural. It's cultural. It's about making a commitment to professional standards. Ambition without foundation, it collapses. Standards have to be those kind of foundations of any of this.
So, I mean, look, I guess, the upshot for a lot of people is, oh, we want Pro Rel, that this is something American soccer needs. I mean, there are people who see this as a moral imperative. I struggle with that a little bit, Connor. I don't think it's like we have to have it or the soccer's invalid, but people see this as a big step. And I guess you're suggesting here that, maybe USL or just the idea is a little out over its skis and we're not taking care of that foundational element. I guess, how the balance of those things, because I'm sure on the management side, they'll say, well, we can't make these things happen if we give you too much. And, I'm going to side with labor. That's just my base state. But there will be people who say, well, you got to let these people, invest their money in the ways they see fit. So then everything can, the wake can pull everybody along.
For sure. I absolutely subscribe to this. What collective bargaining does, and I think this is why this is such a paradigm shift when we got recognition and went into this the first time, it gives players a formal seat at the table. We have a legal process to walk through to try to define what balance is. Certainly recognize for the sport from a business standpoint to work, both at a league level and a club level, hey, you need to have upside. If we're going to put money into this, I need my return on investment. I know that that's how they're looking at it, whether that's at a league level and, hey, how do we sell more franchises? Or whether it's at a club level of how do I grow my enterprise value? Those things need to be in balance with how does the business operate. I think from a player perspective, with some of these big markers that have been put out there, especially by the league, we feel like the standards are out of balance and need to get addressed.
So you've had 26 negotiation sessions. You feel there hasn't been very significant progress. So if it gets to the end of the CBA and, nothing positive or no agreement has come to, what happens next?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is very much a fluid situation. I can't really comment about where this goes. I think from our perspective, from a player perspective, we recognize the importance of continuity. We recognize the importance of stability, particularly going into a domestic World Cup and then all the things that are going to come around attention in the game. And, how does USL and the standard of play at this level benefit from that? However, I think from a player perspective, we recognize we need to find balance here. And I think some of our issue from our perspective, in some ways, I think you can view these negotiations as kind of having three entities: league, club, and players. And, from our perspective, there needs to be balance between those three entities. And in particular with the league right now, we do not think there's balance.
We got some people in the chat there throwing questions fast and furious. I know you probably can't answer all of these, Connor, but just in the interest of maybe as much transparency as we can provide here, because again, I think it's important for your message to get out here. This is a pretty basic one. I mean, again, this is the balance between the investment and the spending and all those things. The question is, are the crowds big enough to cover this, or do owners have to subsidize this? Do you have a sense of what that looks like in terms of what you're asking the league to do, or asking USL as an entity to provide the owners? Because individual clubs are run individually. I mean, that's important to point out too.
Yeah, I think that's actually worth kind of picking at here a little bit. If you're, let's say, an NFL owner and you buy in, you kind of have 1/30 at the table, and then you go hire Goodell or whoever it is to work for you as the commissioner. The league office works on behalf of the set of owners. That is different than the USL's model. Hey, this is more of a pure franchise system. So when I buy my franchise, I'm not necessarily getting a control point. The league and the clubs are not necessarily always financially aligned.
Right. Well, this is something that's come up with the discussions around Pro-Rel and the media rights, because right now the media rights money doesn't flow to the club the way it would in an NFL model.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at this, again, in generic brushstrokes, what we're looking at is the upside of the sport. A lot of what the capital, from a league perspective, how do they capitalize on that? Look at all the expansion. Now, does expansion benefit the current clubs? Does it benefit the players? Are we in balance? I think that's some of the foundational things that I think from a player perspective that we very much care about.
Mm-hmm.
What's the current big imbalance? Is it league heavy? Are you saying?
I think that is a big factor here. So when we get back to, hey, crowd size of these sorts of things, certainly a recognition from a player point of view that a lot of our club owners are making a significant investment. We are still building the infrastructure of this sport. We have our differences sometimes about, hey, how is money spent or those sorts of things, but there's a recognition that we're kind of partners in that. We're trying to grow the game, particularly at a grassroots level in these local communities. On a bigger scale, are we in balance with the kind of momentum of the league and those sorts of things?
Right. I mean, obviously, not to put words in your mouth, what we want to avoid is that the players feel exploited, or that there aren't basic standards to allow them to perform at a level that obviously makes the league look good. And I don't know why, or USL. I keep saying the league, and I know that's probably not the most accurate word. It's not in the best interest of USL to have bad soccer, and you can't have good soccer if the players aren't supported. So that is a thing.
To me, Jason, what we have to do here is we've got to find balance between the three entities, generically being league, clubs, and players. And how do we make this work in unison, given the structure of this league?
Okay. All right. All right.
So as we move ahead, what is the absolute deadline, and is there another negotiation session set up?
Yeah. Our current deal expires December 31st of this year. So that's from a technical point of view. It gives some sort of deadline. In terms of next sessions, we will be in a session this afternoon.
Oh,
right.
This afternoon. Okay, so there could be some news very shortly on updates from here. And I sure hope that we can hear some positive updates and hear as this progresses. And we really thank you for sharing the story and what's going on with the USLPA and the negotiations with the USL itself.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you, Cutter.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. And thank you, viewers, for chiming in some great comments and questions to throw in there. I hope you like that conversation. We're glad to put a little bit of coverage on it's been low key in the mainstream reporting, but a big building block of, the future of what we talk about on this show, expansion, Pro-Rel, D1, all those things. A big building block of that is the players on the field.
The devil is in the details, right? You're like, oh, Pro-Rel's great. A first division for USL, linking 3 different leagues together in a manner we've never had before. Stadiums are coming online. Clubs are investing in marketing. There's Vivid Franco. What about the players?
Yeah. The people that doing the thing that we want to see. What are we taking care of them?
There's no game without fans, but there's no game without players either. There's no team. It doesn't exist. You can't just sit in the stands and watch air for 90 minutes. No, you have to have players out there, and obviously they need to be supported, and they need to feel like they're being treated in a professional way, and not just because people deserve that, Rob. Not again. The balance between that Connor's talking about, between what the league brings in, what the clubs bring in, and what the players are asking for, all that stuff is very tricky and very tough to get to down to the exact numbers. But you want the league to be attractive, right? You can't run a good soccer league and get people to come out and support their teams and make the business go if you can't get players to want to play for you. Right? That's the thing. That's the thing I don't know about with the mentality of USL. and maybe we need to get their side on the CBA stuff. Maybe we can reach out. Right? We know they have big plans going on right now. Is there a sense that we can replace these players? And it doesn't matter. And CBA is not an important part of our future, or one that pays the players more or provides for health insurance or whatever it is. Do they think? I'm not saying they dismiss the player portion of this, but maybe for them it's not as critical. And I wonder about that part of it.
Yep, we got one more segment to go, a compelling one here in the middle of our show, but we got one more to go, and we have a goal of 3 members during this show. So one more segment to get 2 more, as we have to salute Simply Dope for becoming a new MK Ultra. Be Simply Dope and join our friend who became a brand new member. Thank you so much for becoming an MK Ultra. 2 more in the final segment, and we'll do a little bit more for you here on today's episode. So we're going to catch our breath and come right back with today's big question here on Morning Kickaround. Big question here on Morning Kickaround. I'm Robert. He's Jason. And kind of a thought experiment here in this video. With just a few weeks remaining, a couple games to go in the USL. We're going to take a look at if the proposed promotion and relegation was implemented this year, what would that mean to the tables? And what do you think the implications would be on the leagues and those teams caught up in the ups and the downs of the pro rel to come? What if it happened already and we're already living in this world?
Yeah, let's imagine a future in which a CBA has been agreed to between the USLPA and all the various USL competitions, that they've launched their pyramid, that we've got movement between 3 different leagues. Now, we don't know what Division 1 is going to look like yet. Like we're working on our answering some questions or finding out figuring out what the questions are that the league faces, that USL faces around organizing pro rel. We don't know which teams are going to be first division, which teams are going to be USL championship. But let's imagine that there was promotion and relegation between the 2 USL professional leagues right now, and that clubs in the USL championship will be dropping down to USL League One next year if they finish bottom 3. Now we are putting aside the possibility of promotion and relegation playoffs, at least between leagues, the way that say Germany does it, Rob, or even a playoff between teams to see who stays up and goes down within the USL championship, because that gets too complicated.
For this conversation, that's too complicated, but when it actually does happen, I would love for that, like the 3rd place team to play the 3rd lowest
something
seed,
like that, right? So, well, hold on. Do you prefer the Bundesliga model, which is the 16th place team in the Bundesliga plays, I think, the 3rd place team in the 2nd Bundesliga to see who has that spot in the top division? You like that one?
Yeah, I really do like that. I think that that's interesting. And I think that if there was ever a launch connecting to MLS, we're not going to touch there too much, but I would think that if they wanted the lightest version of Pro Rel, it would almost just be a play in. If like that 2nd division is so weak and that MLS team just mops the floor with them, then they didn't deserve to be there. But
I see.
But I do like them out. I like the way that Germany does it, and I think that that's just such high drama to so much on the line there.
We're in the weeds here. I'm sorry, but are we talking a one-off playoff game at the higher leagues team home field, or are we talking about a two-legged aggregate series? What are we talking about here?
Well, I think we should do a 2-game aggregate series, give both sides the spectacle in their home field, more chance to sell tickets, all that jazz. But that's high drama.
Okay.
The games on the line to protect your D1 status, or potentially, thing of dreams, a dream come true to be promoted. But that's not necessarily what we are hanging on here. In this video, we're talking about 3 up, 3 down.
Yeah.
6 of the contenders here in the USL Championship to go down. Stalwart, Tampa Bay Rowdies, lower in the table than they're used to being. Birmingham Legion and Miami FC. So this is a big part of why I wanted to do this is Miami FC not doing very well in the USL Championship, but we just talked last week. They want to build a 15,000 person stadium that would hit the PLS for a 1st division. We don't know if they've applied yet, but seemingly that is in their minds. But here they sit in last place in the USL Championship. How do those things go together?
Yeah. Look, this is why some people, and certainly people who, even if they like the idea of promotion and relegation as a concept, would say we can't do it here, at least not yet. And maybe, American soccer is like, what's the ship? Somebody is going to remember the name of the ship. Whoever the guy who had the ship, where you're replacing parts as you sail. And so if you replace all of the parts by the time you arrive at your destination, is it the same ship? Like, that's American soccer. We're always kind of, as we continue along, replacing parts, things are falling off, we're putting on new ones, clubs disappear, we add a couple here and there. So that would be an argument against Pro Rel on some front, because if you said to Miami FC, you're going down, bro, like you're in the bottom of the championship, you're out of here, then can they go to Homestead, Florida and say, hey, build us a 15,000 seat stadium, or help us to build a 15,000 seat stadium? Would Homestead, Florida like that? I don't know. I'm not saying that that Homestead would have a problem, or Miami FC might not still be ambitious as a USL League One team, but that question does loom. So you said those are the three teams in the Eastern Conference. We got the three teams in the West is Monterey Bay, Oakland Roots, and Las Vegas Lights. Now, the reason I did it this way is because obviously you have two conferences in the USL Championship, and I don't have a combined table available, but you can see the points. Right now, Miami would be at the bottom, Birmingham 2 points above them. Then you have Las Vegas on 25 points, and then Oakland, Tampa Bay, and then Monterey Bay is a point above those teams. So that's, you can start 6 all the way down, right? Now, this would mean, like, if relegation was happening right now, there would be a battle between these 6 teams, and maybe toss in a couple others who didn't make this graphic, who would be battling to avoid being in those bottom 3 spots.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine that it stayed the way it is. So that's Miami, Birmingham, and Las Vegas going down. You lose, if you are USL, from your top division, which is the USL Championship at the moment, you would lose the markets of Miami, Las Vegas, and Birmingham, Alabama. Now, maybe that's not a thing. Maybe, who cares what markets you lose? You're gonna add markets from USL League One that come up, or there are plenty of more. Again, when we talk about PLS, we don't know how this fits, and it's one of the questions we have for USL. How do PLS apply when you lose Miami, Florida, and maybe replace it with Madison, Wisconsin, or Greenville, South Carolina, which doesn't meet the PLS for a first division league? How does U.S. Soccer deal with that? And I'm not saying that U.S. Soccer should be like, nope, you can't have a first division league because you might replace Miami with Greenville. I'm saying there has to be a change to the way we think about this. It's why we also have out there the question of, is there a conversation around PLS happening right now? Because the PLS have never had to deal with this. U.S. Soccer by no means has said, nope, this isn't happening. We're putting the kibosh on this. You can't do Pro Rel. They're saying the level of investment and the interest in the soccer is a good thing for the American game. It seems at least that they are open to trying to figure this out. So but then there's the effect on the clubs itself, Rob. Beyond, Miami wants to build a stadium, but even if they weren't, what would that mean? What would it mean for Las Vegas to be playing in USL League One? Do you think that would impact them at all? Or is it just the same? By the way, thank you to Crispy Doo. Ship of Perseus. That's exactly right. It's not how you spell Perseus, I don't think, but that's what I'm talking about. The ship of Perseus.
Can we give a shout out to the information and knowledge and the expertise in the chat that's going on these days?
Yeah.
I mean, pulling Perseus.
Let me also address this from our new members. Simply don't. There is a conversation happening between USL and USSF. There's always conversations happening between everybody. Let's just say that. There are probably emails exchanged on a regular basis between USL and US Soccer, because US Soccer sanctions leagues and has oversight on a number of things, and USL wants to be in their good graces. Whether they are sitting down and negotiating differences in the PLS for USL or changes, or that is not known. All right. I know there's some reporting on this, but it's not real firm, and I haven't seen any second reporting on it. So it's not to say it's not happening. It's just we cannot be 100% sure that they have gone down the road of trying to figure out what PLS looks like under Pro Rel. Right? Oh, Theseus, not Perseus. Thank you to Dylan. It's Theseus. We're getting all of our Greek mythology stuff wrong today.
So looking at these individual teams, like how would that affect them? So Las Vegas and Miami both have had ups and downs as far as they've had good attendance in the past, might have trickled down, up and down, definitely up and down for Las Vegas Lights. Definitely Miami has taken a hit since Inter Miami showed up into town. So would a drop down another league cement?
From an attendance perspective, it would have no. It couldn't really have an impact on Miami because their attendance is terrible. They average 1,100 fans, right? What could going down mean for them? Not a whole lot, but it does mean that they are kind of stuck in the mud. And again, if you're talking about plans like building a stadium, would that impact that, or you just keep charging forward because you're trying to get the team out of the mud? And it doesn't matter what league you're in, win your way up after you get your new stadium built or whatever. And in a place like Vegas is not doing that great on attendance either. 26. Now they're bad, right? Maybe people aren't showing up because they're bad. If you send them down to the third division, the second division in this case, does that make people more excited for them? Probably not.
Would anyone notice though? Would anyone know the people of Las Vegas? Would they notice the difference between USL Championship and USL League One? Are they following it close? I'm sure there's dedicated supporters that obviously would, but the empty seats people, the ones that were once there that are no longer there, would they care the difference between Championship and League
One? That's a good question.
But at the same time, I mean, I think a lot of teams that are not fully embedded yet, we don't have generational buy-in as far as supporterhood. Can you do that with only 6 wins out of 26 games? I mean, you have to give them something to buy in.
Right.
And bottom is a tough spot.
Here's another thing. What is not established yet, and this is more conceptual than anything else. Again, I'm not saying this is a problem to be fixed. But in a place like England, and just to use that example because we're all familiar with it, you are certain that a Premier League team, there will be players whose contracts are canceled because of relegation clauses, but you're certain that a Premier League team, especially with parachute payments, is going to be better on talent, more than likely, than almost everybody else in the championship when they go down, right? And this is why we got yo-yo teams, because teams from the Premier League come down with advantages, and then those advantages are executed against the league that they are playing in. We don't know if there are going to be distinct differences in quality between the first USL division, the second USL division, and the third USL division. You would presume as much, but it's not nearly as established because the media rights are not there to fund the top level team at a significantly higher level than the second level team. Do you know what I'm saying, Rob? Do you understand what I'm saying here? Like totally. If Vegas went down, they could be the worst. And look, double relegation has happened. Bad teams have tumbled down the table in England. I'm not saying, but that's that thing of like, oh, Vegas is coming from the championship into League One. Well, they're going to be one of the better League One teams because they're coming from the championship. They were not good for championship level, but they should still be better than everybody else in League One based on the talent that they bring down. And I don't know how relegation clauses are going to be if they're going to be part of this or not. In fact,
but we couldn't get that now. The USL 1 and the USL Championship is basically the budget that you had going in. It was what you bought, your buy-in level, essentially. At this point.
Again, because of the way media rights is sort of split out and it doesn't trickle down to the clubs in USL. This is part of the reporting around this news about ProRel that is not how the media rights work, right? You have owners of USL, they organize the league, the media rights flow to them. Clubs are on their own for making the money that they need to operate, right? To bring in players so that they can be successful on the field and then presumably add more fans in the stands and maybe get coverage and maybe get a local TV deal or something to that effect. Right? This is still so early. And again, they're doing this, Rob, because it's a differentiator for their league, for their competitions to add ProRel and be the only ones doing that. But that's just an interesting part of this to me, that the economic maturity is not there for us to compare apples to apples what happens in other countries.
No, we're not there at all. Are we going to dip into the positive side of it of who might go up, or are we going to save that for a future?
I don't have the table for that, Rob. You can go look at. I mean, obviously, we're talking about USL League One because there is no division above the championship as it sits right now. So if you look at USL League One and consider who might be going up, and that's a league that's smaller, right? So that league is not split up between two conferences the way that the championship is. So it's kind of easier to just pick out. Now, playoffs as part of not just who stays in the league in the Bundesliga model or the German model, but also who goes up, right? Or who wins a title and then goes like, does the playoff, do the finalists both go up? What if you finish sixth and make the playoffs and then are a finalist for the USL League One title because you're still doing playoffs to determine champions? Or does USL intend to toss out playoffs and do single table because now Pro Rel is on the table? Those questions are not clear.
Well, that's what
those
kind of makes
answers.
this moment in time that we're doing this show so compelling and interesting because, I mean, it's we can speculate till our our ears bleed that there is just so many variables and details to pick out. And I was about to read it off my phone, but Crispy Dewey got it right here. Chattanooga Red Wolves won Knoxville and FC Naples as it stands would be the top three going up. And so like Tampa Bay, Las Vegas or Miami dropping down. Oh no, my apologies. Birmingham, Miami, and Las Vegas as it stands.
Right,
Replaced by
again,
Naples, Knoxville, and Chattanooga.
if Pro Rel was in place, and obviously if it was single table, which I also have an issue with doing Pro Rel when you don't have a balanced schedule. That seems odd to me.
Yeah, definitely.
It's relative strength being what it is. But in this case, we would be talking about at least these 6 teams in a battle going into the last 4 or 5 games of the year. Monterey Bay only has 3 games left, so they're actually at a disadvantage relative to the teams that they're competing against. So that would be what this is about, right? That drama at the end of the season. Who's going to stay up? Obviously, in the case of coming up, Chattanooga leading the league in League One, won Knoxville, Naples, Spokane, chasing Naples and Knoxville, trying to get into that top 2 or 3. Is it going to be top 2 or automatically promoted? Third place team is in a playoff. Do you do playoffs from 3 to 6? Do you replace your league championship playoffs with promotion playoffs, which in that case would mean Portland, Hearts of Pine, and Union Omaha would both be in the playoffs if you did 3 through 6, a la the English Championship? I mean, so many possibilities. The mind explodes. We're all the mind exploding meme right now.
And where my heart usually lies, and I exist mostly in the USL 2 world outside of this show, and I just got to think of the bottom of the table in USL League 1 is expansion side Westchester SC. And does the USL 2 champion Vermont Green get a shot?
No, stop it with that. If they want to go pro, they got to go pro, or they got to declare for that. They're not going to just come up because they won that league because they're not a pro outfit.
They get a promotion token exchange for future promotions.
Well, I mean, again, this is a complication too. Not forget Vermont Green. Congratulations to Vermont Green. Incredible season. Short season. Also worth pointing out, like all those things. But you're talking about Westchester. Westchester is brand spanking new. We had their owner on. His heart is in the right place. He wants to build something there in the suburbs of New York City. Does sending him down in his first year, if there was a level below below League One, sending him down, is that the right thing to do for a brand new team? Or do you just have to accept that? Like, take your lumps. And again, if it's not, whether it's good or not, does USL have to bake into the system some sort of protection so a club like that can manage to stay alive so that they can fight to go back up, so they're not disappearing off the map? Because we dot the map. We do not erase things off. We don't want to erase things off the map. And this is the trouble with this, as we consider both the good and the bad with the USL approach to everything that's going on right now. And of course, bring the players into the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, as we pick our way through this, it just goes to the example of like, there's so many details to be worked out, because obviously we know that first year of any professional organization, even at the very top of, the mainstream NFL and the NBA, is the first year is a struggle. And for them to immediately become an amateur side the year after going pro would be disastrous and counterproductive. To your point there, but plenty to think about. We are definitely in the I don't know if the murky middle or somewhere where we're just planting those seeds and what grows out of this soil of the American soccer landscape.
We do not have time to dive into this, and I know we did are very speculative and sort of like ignoring some of the details of the PLS. But that question of, do any championship clubs, what championship clubs currently meet the PLS standards as they sit, not as they might be negotiated, but as they sit right now? And Rob, what do we know? We know 15,000 seater stadium, enclosed stadium, by the way. You got to stand on one side or stand on the other. That's not good enough. It's supposed to be enclosed.
Do they consider those old school, like Chicago Fire and the old Columbus Crew Stadium, where it's like a stage on one end? Is that considered enclosed? Hopefully.
I think it just means, well,
It's
that's
not
a good
an empty
question.
thing.
That's a good question. What constitutes enclosed in that situation? Okay. Anyway, we are talking about 15,000 seats. We're talking about population of the metro region, again, which is kind of a floating number sometimes. And what if you're 950? Are they going to say no? You don't count. It's a million.
Yeah, what if some
like
families move out? Like you're going to lose your status because some people move to a different state or something.
Yeah, I mean, again, some of this stuff should be malleable, and you can't imagine U.S. Soccer is going to take a hard line on like literally every one of those standards in every single case. But maybe those won't count as quote unquote waivers. Is that maybe they don't count as waivers. They're just kind of like, well, you're close enough. Like close enough. 75% of the league's teams must be based in the United States. Not a problem for USL. All stadiums must have controllable ingress, egress. That's just like, you got to have like a fence around your stadium and you can control who can come in and go out. Right? That is absolutely a thing. Yeah, I mean, financial viability, we know about that. That's kind of not something we can take into account. Again, the size of the stadium for the first division league is 15,000. And when you look at the current situation, you've got, let's see, we've got Oakland Roots, but they're playing in a giant place they'd rather not play in. You've got Birmingham Legion playing in a football stadium. You've got Miami FC playing in a football stadium. They don't want to play in it anymore. Let's see. Who else even meets that? That's it? Is that the list?
Louisville?
No, Louisville is, I think Louisville is less than 12. I think they have to increase their capacity to meet the standard. So,
and we already
again,
saw that standard changed when D1 became a possibility. Detroit City FC's stadium plans had to get rearranged to get themselves to qualify. So with that, actually, that's a good point of Detroit must think that they're going to be pretty solid on holding to that 15,000 if they're going to rearrange their stadium capacity plans.
The current PLS standards, again, waivers are possible. These are not hard, fast rules. All league stadiums must have a minimum seating capacity of 15,000. That's what it says.
High bar?
At least 75% of the league's teams must play in metro markets of at least 1 million persons.
That's a lot of persons.
There are, and then you get into this from Bernardo. Do you really want San Antonio leaving their soccer-specific stadium to go play in the Alamo Dome because it's bigger and it fits the professional league standard? Like, I don't think that's ideal.
No.
So again, there's so many questions out there. And stay tuned. We're working on putting something out on the biggest questions as we see them.
Yes, that is coming soon from yours truly, but I think that should do it for Wednesday's live edition of Morning Kickaround. As you know, our videos segmented and put on the Morning Kickaround channel for you to view later. We've got a lot of great stuff on the channel as we approach 500,000 views on the Morning Kickaround YouTube channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in today and to all the videos along the way. Thank you to our new member, Simply Dope. Thank you for joining the MK Ultras. Look forward to seeing you in the Discord chat shortly. Hopefully we can get you to dot the map, add your location and see where you're at and get your pin on the map. And then if anyone considering it, hit the subscribe button, doesn't cost you a thing. Telling someone about your favorite soccer show doesn't cost you a thing. And thank you anyone who has contributed by becoming a member, a super thanks, or contributing on the coffee page at coffee.com/morningkickaround. All right. big stuff on the way. Like we said, we teased it a lot. We got some USL stuff coming away. And I think I'm going to re-listen to that Connor Tobin interview. Some interesting stuff. Great interview from the head of the USLPA. But until Friday, everybody, enjoy your soccer.